Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ormond Beach, a welcoming community of compassion and acceptance. I am the Reverend Kathy Turicki, and I invite you to our virtual worship service this morning. The in-person discussion group and worship services usually held in our building have been suspended until further notice. We will continue to hold discussion group at 9:15 a.m. and worship at 10:30 a.m. every Sunday via Zoom until it is safe to hold large group functions again in our building. If you are joining us for the first time this morning, we extend a special welcome to you. We invite you to stay on the Zoom meeting after the service concludes, when many in attendance enjoy a bit of conversation with each other. We would enjoy meeting you if you'd like to introduce yourself. If you would like to learn more about Unitarian Universalism, I invite you to go to our website at uuormond.info and select the About Us tab. If you'd like to get further connected with our congregation, please email me at the address on this screen. This morning, Rita Sheeler is feeling unwell, and so Ludi Goodson is going to be our co-host. Thank you, Ludi. And also Cliff Jackson, our service leader, is unable to be here, so it is moi. So let us go on now to our announcements for the good of the community. Our building remains closed to most activities, and if you must be in the building, a mask is required. Please practice social distancing, keep surfaces clean. There's a hand sanitizer dispenser in the kitchen. Please remember to schedule all events through our administrator, Kathy Jackson. While we're not holding congregational activities in the building, we still need to coordinate Zoom meetings and events and have them on our church calendar. Gaia Davies says that she and her friends are doing splendidly with their vaccination efforts. They have been assisting the congregation with various ways to receive their COVID vaccinations, and everybody who's asked for help has now received at least their first dose. The age limit has dropped in Florida, and so there may be more of you who need to know the best way to apply. Gaia welcomes you to contact her, and she'll help. On Wednesday of April 28th at 4 p.m., Lifelong Learning presents Dr. Betty Green, who will talk about language and linguistics. It's going to be via Zoom, and an announcement will go out with the link. That link is also in the e-news. Alliance reminds us to give generously of ourselves to the Family Renew community. See the e-news for more detail, but they are the nonprofit recipient this month for Alliance, who has renewed their commitment to be an angel to Family Renew community, committing to $350 a year for the next year. And you are invited to also give of your time, talent, and treasure as individuals in the congregation. Contact Family Renew for how to find out about what you can do for them. Please be sure to read the weekly e-news and this month's Jotter for more details about upcoming events and other ongoing announcements. I also have an announcement from Julie Hilburn, our board president. The board designated an ad hoc committee to study safe and prudent procedures for resuming activities in our building. The chairs of the ad hoc reopening committee are Rebecca Cachette and Susan Garrison. Expect updates from the board and the ad hoc committee as they make recommendations. And in the meantime, the building remains closed for most church activities. And also, please mark your calendars. The annual meeting will be Sunday, June the 6th, immediately following the service. And also the stewardship campaign will commence in May. In the absence of a physical passing of the offering basket at this time, we appreciate your continued financial support by mailing pledge payments to UUCOB at the address on your screen.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
At the sound of the singing bowl, our service begins. Our call to worship this morning, the words of Sherry Woodbury. I'll be reading it singly this morning as Cliff is not here. Welcome, all who come in friendship, who long for genuine community. May you be graciously received here as your authentic self. Welcome, all who come in curiosity, full of questions, or simply open to the questions. May you embrace wonder and encounter new delights. Welcome, all who come heavy with fatigue, weary from the world's troubles, or the troubles of your particular life. May you rest and be filled in this sacred place. Welcome, all who come with joy for flowing rivers and gentle breeze, for changing skies and great trees. May the grace of the world have a lasting impression in you. Welcome all those who come with thanks for the altruism of the earth and the gift of human care. May your grateful heart overflow and bless those around you. Come, let us celebrate together this wondrous life. I invite you, if you have one at home, to light a chalice with me. I light this chalice, a single flame, which I hope kindles many hearts this morning. Let this flame unite us in virtual community and remind us of each other's presence as we worship from many singular rooms. Let this flame inspire in us faith and courage to face these difficult times. Let this flame be our guide in making sense of a chaotic world, and let its light show us the way to beloved community, both near and far. And with yourselves muted, if you wish, recite our congregational covenant together. Love is the spirit of our congregation, and service is our aim, to dwell together in peace and freedom, to seek the truth and to help one another. These are our goals. Our joys and concerns this morning. I'm going to start off with a concern because there is a big bad thunderstorm brewing right now outside my window, and hopefully I am not going to lose you by a power failure. I also have two joys. First of all, my daughter, Allison Lee Rickey, was born to me 27 years ago today, and I want to wish my daughter a happy, happy birthday. And also something that I have shared with some of you, but I want to let as many people know as possible that Dawn and I have a date. We are getting married on June the 27th in a small family wedding on the beach. So just to let you know, and of course, when we can all come back together in the building safely, it's my intention to have a reception at the church and that you will be my guests in celebrating Dawn and my marriage. I look forward to it. We have a few concerns, a few members with health issues. Terry Kalaska is recovering at home from kidney surgery. Please send her cards and emails. No phone calls to Terry, please. Marilyn Doctor must have knee replacement surgery and is having trouble walking. Arden suffers from chronic infections. Please send them cards and calls of cheer. And then finally, John Horner is having trouble with his eyesight, and he is showing signs of Parkinson's, which he's being tested for. Please send cards, but no emails, as he cannot read emails right now. He welcomes calls as well. For all the joys and concerns which remain silently on our hearts this morning, will you pray with me? These words by Leif Seligman. We pause in the stillness to rest for a moment, to quiet ourselves so that we can feel what stirs within us. Each breath draws us closer to the pulse of life, and with each exhalation, we make room for something new. May we find in this gathering the comfort of those who care. May we encounter patience along our growing edges and compassion in our most tender places. Here, may we find the inspiration and encouragement we need to face our challenges and nurture ourselves. And in the presence of suffering across the globe, may we redouble our efforts to practice kindness where we are, with the hope that the light of our actions travels like the light of faraway stars. May we travel humbly with one another, choosing reconciliation over resentment as we try to live right-sized. When life presses in and shifts us off balance, when pain assails us, when frustration mounts, may the rhythm of our breath steady us and bring us back to a place of gratitude. Amen. Our musical interlude this morning, a little change. This a rendition of Voice Still and Small, performed by the Reverend Christopher Watkins Lamb from Foothills Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Fort Collins, Colorado. Presented with permission.
Still and small, deep inside out, I hear you call, singing in dark and rain, sorrow and pain, still you remain, singing. in dark and rain, sorrow and pain, still you remain singing, calming my fears, quenching my tears through all the years, singing.
This morning, my sermon is As the Spirit Moves, because there was a change in schedule. I was going to do our stewardship kickoff sermon this morning, but our schedule has changed. Were I to give a title to my talk today, I would call it COVID toes and other totally unexpected symptoms of a modern day plague. You've heard of COVID toes, right? It's a red rash which appears on the extremities of fingers and toes as a symptom of COVID infected people across the globe. Often the rash turns purple, then fades. Most often the rash is painless, but sometimes it causes itching, discomfort, and blisters. For some, COVID toe is the only indication that a person has been infected by the COVID-19 virus. Epidemiologists are not sure what causes COVID toe, but it may have something to do with the clotting effect of the virus, the clotting effect that it has on blood, affecting even the small capillaries in the skin. Just another oddity that has come out of many oddities of living in these novel times. Novel times may be an understatement. No doubt these are unprecedented times in our human history, although humanity has suffered other forms of widespread deadly diseases. What makes this time different is, of course, the novelty of the disease itself, but also the context of our human lives in which we currently live. I believe one condition we live with that doesn't do us any favors is the amount of control we think we have over things that happen to us, especially concerning illness. In the last century, science and medicine have defeated numerous viral and bacterial infectants that would otherwise significantly reduce our population. Penicillin and the formulation of vaccines has kept us ahead of the survival game. And between our understanding of how disease spreads, our hygiene, and our public health works, we expect to remain in control of our destiny individually, publicly, and as a species. We humans don't like it at all when something microscopic comes along to prove how vulnerable we are. Thus, the last thing that we expected in 2020 was to be locked down by a novel virus that claimed too many lives and scared the willies out of us. We were sobered by the rapid infection rate, so we were happy to wash our hands and don our masks and stay home as much as possible. There was safety to be found with these habits. However, various levels of stress persisted, casting a pall over us like a winter sky that we have endured for well over a year now. Let me share a story that illustrates how oddly and unexpectedly the emotions of this pandemic play out for us, partly because of our expectations, partly because of what we don't expect. I have a good friend who lives in another state. She's given me permission to tell her story anonymously, so I'm going to call her Susie. Susie has a wonderful career and a great quality of life. She has a son who is away at college, and so Susie lives alone for the most part, but that suits her personality very well. Susie is a happy, upbeat person who takes good care of herself. Since the shutdown began over a year ago, Susie has been cautious. She has worked from home and had her groceries delivered. She hasn't shopped or dined in restaurants. Susie's son visited briefly during the holidays, but he got tested in anticipation of coming home. Outside her son's visit, Susie has had little physical contact with other people and almost no face-to-face contact with people close to her in over a year. A little over a month ago, Susie had an opportunity to get vaccinated. When Susie texted me to tell me about the experience, she said that en route to the vaccination site, she was suddenly overcome with emotion. She said her feeling of overwhelm seemed to come out of nowhere. Alone in her car, she says her tears flowed, but she couldn't understand why. She couldn't connect her feelings with any known anxiety about getting the shot or the vaccine. Susie is a health science professional. She, more than most, knows the ins and outs of getting vaccinated. She said she couldn't connect being overcome with emotion with any relationship issues or problems at work. There were none. And she couldn't connect her free-flowing tears with any feelings of depression or anxiety. She's not prone to either. In relating her experience to me, Susie concluded that although she thought she was perfectly comfortable in her solitude over the past year, being in isolation must have taken more of a toll than she realized. Susie is fine now. Being now fully vaccinated, she's getting out more, going to the office, visiting with friends. But in that moment, when the floodgates opened for her, Susie was at a total loss to explain it. The Reverend Sunshine Wolf, a trauma response consultant for the Unitarian Universalist Association, talks about experiences like my friend Susie had and explains that trauma is a shock to the system, simply a shock to the system. It can be a physical shock, like a traumatic injury. It could be a shock to a person's nervous system, which affects mental and emotional processing. People can even experience spiritual trauma, as when a person experiences something which causes a cognitive dissonance or something that disrupts one's orientation to life, their understanding of it, or their ability to make sense and meaning of it. These traumas, these shocks to the system can be mild and recovery quick, but they can also be extreme, like the experience of combat soldiers. As we know, frontline soldiers often develop post-traumatic stress disorder, which requires treatment and years of recovery time. One of the reasons the trauma remains long after the incidents of shock occurs is that our bodies process and heal the shock much more quickly than our brains are able to process the incident. Sometimes we don't even have words to describe what we experienced in the way of being traumatized until long after the fact. When the trauma is on the milder side, we may not be aware that we've experienced a shock to our system until, like my friend Susie, the symptoms showed up. Such symptoms have been described as feeling slightly disoriented, fog-brained, difficulty focusing and remembering things, and being quick to tears or being ill-tempered. One or more of these symptoms may show up, but chances are they will be short-lived and clear up on their own in these mild cases. We just have to give ourselves the time and space to process and be kind and gentle to ourselves as we move through to full recovery. Now, some may think that trauma is too strong a word to uh, describe what we've been through in this pandemic. And for some, that may be true. I don't think anybody can deny that there has been a lot of stress related to it. Not only what we experience in our personal lives, but what we are seeing in the news, and certainly we had a lot of stress around um, when the pandemic, the infection rate was high, and we were concerned about how public health policy was being decided and administered. But if we don't think that what we've been through over the last year is at least mildly traumatizing, consider these statistics. The COVID death toll of over 500,000 people in the United States is nearing the death toll of the Civil War, our worst, the worst event of our history. The worldwide total is over 2.5 million deaths. Now, this knowledge alone is enough to cause trauma in us. Even though you and I have been relatively comfortable in writing out this pandemic, and consciously we've had reason enough to be in pretty good spirits in facing the challenges of this global pandemic, our humanity alone will not allow us to go unaffected by the knowledge of so much loss of life. We sense it in our bones because we are connected. We recognize at a deep level the loss we have sustained as a people. And while one can observe with a certain emotional distance that nature has called our species before, our interior lives tend not to be soothed by cool logic. While we may now find our vaccinated bodies in good shape and ready to mingle with strangers and with each other again, our minds and our psyches are still trying to process the sustained stress and, in some cases, the trauma of the last 13 months. Our brains simply take longer to heal than our bodies. And I suggest this is something we, as a close-knit community, need to pay attention to as we move forward. First, we must recognize that as individuals in our congregational community, we are going to be emerging from these COVID times with differing experiences at differing stages of the processing of what happened to us in the last year. For example, consider those who have lost loved ones during this time. Their grief has been complicated by an overlay of stress and trauma. Their experience and their processing will be significantly different from our own. And therefore, let us be mindful of their experience and let us be supportive of their grieving process. Other ways in which members might be dealing with loss, in addition to a year of pandemic living, are those who experience changes in their health, dealing with chronic illnesses and the vagaries of aging. There may be among us those who have suffered financially during the past year, or who might have had relationship challenges, either being too much togetherness or not enough. And consider those who have abided the last year of the shutdown, alone and isolated. For my friend, being alone for a year turned out to be a tough experience for her in unexpected ways. Consider your own experiences. Have you found yourself more emotional as of late? Maybe less patient? Are you extra tired, low energy? Does it seem like the simple tasks are becoming more of a challenge? Getting my taxes done, and I don't mean preparing the taxes myself, but just preparing the paperwork, gathering all of the paperwork to take to my accountant felt like moving a mountain this year. As individuals, we may experience any number of confounding and quirky symptoms as we move out of the depths of this pandemic experience. Because, as Reverend Wolf points out, this processing, which sometimes feels like we're coming undone or unraveling, this processing is at its most intense not during the pandemic, not within the stressful times, but as we come out of them. I call it stress letdown. And as the space opens up for us to process what happened, as we move out of those stressful times, that's when stuff bubbles up for us. So if you have been experiencing any of those things, be patient with yourself. Give yourself lots of room for taking your time returning to normal. I don't want to say lower your expectations, but just have fewer of them of yourself. And I would say that as we, as a congregation together, as a system together, we're going to be experiencing together as a congregation some of those same things. A bit of anxiety or anxiousness, I should say. We may feel like the easy things, the simple things are harder. We may feel that we may be impatient for things to return to normal quickly. But the hazard in that is that there is no normal as it was in the past. There is only new normal. And in some ways, new normal in itself can cause us some distress. We are going to be coming out of this pandemic as a congregation, and sometimes it might feel like as we process what that has been for us in our virtual life here, as we come out of that and transition into being in person, we may experience as a congregation that processing and that feeling of unraveling. And what I ask is that we all be patient with each other. We be patient as a congregation, and that we don't lower our expectations, but we have fewer of them. Let us give ourselves plenty of space to process where we've been as a congregation and where we're going. And let us take our time in returning to this new normal. Let us not rush into full operational capacity. Let us take our time in that, and let us trust our leadership in that. I wish the pandemic were as simple and as quirky as a case of COVID toe, and we would be done with it. But as somebody said in discussion group this morning, it's complicated. It's much more complicated than that. Because we human beings are complicated. We're complex beings with interiors, emotions, spirituality, our experiences and how we process them are very complex, and we all do it slightly differently. So therefore, let us keep in mind that it's not one and done with this pandemic and our coming out of it, that we're going to have to do it in steps. And I encourage your patience and your perseverance around this. And of course, if at any time any of you have a need for processing out loud with me or someone who is a confidant, a trusted ear, please don't hesitate to ask for help around that. It may come to you in ways that you are not expecting. And I don't say that to make you uneasy, but to perhaps anticipate it. The most important aspect of our congregational life is our relationship with each other. Let us honor it. Let us open up and be spacious and generous with each other. May it be so. Amen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our benediction, the words of As We Listen to the Blessing of Music by Maureen Killeran. As we listen to the blessing of music, may we know this ending as more than a time of goodbye. May the warmth of this community and the memory of our chalice flame sustain our hearts and encourage our minds as we engage the blessings of life's challenges and joys. The service has ended. Go in peace, go in joy, go in love. And enjoy this postlude, Aberystwyth by Joseph Perry, arranged by David Angerman, and of course performed by Janet Strumpus, recorded by Felix Fernandez. That concludes our service. Folks, thanks so much for being here today.